I feel that this is history repeating itself almost exactly. That only because of we are fortunate from Bigfoot experience in that the improved communications and modern technology has afforded us a second chance. You know, everything that has transpired here is exactly history repeating itself. The way I feel about it spiritually is Bigfoot spirit is still here and his people's spirits are still here and very much alive. And I believe that they are in fact the ones protecting us. We are suffering the same hardships they suffered: starvation, hunger, inadequate shelter, inadequate warmth, same inclement type weather, the same harassment surrounded by much more firepower than they had, the fact that they were forced to surrender and give up all their arms and then were massacred. See, we're not going to make that the same mistake. If they're going to massacre us, we're going to take some people with us. Now, we provided the forum here for the Sioux people to address their redress of grievances, you know. And at that time, it's the 1868 Sioux Treaty or nothing. Originally, the Civil Rights Organization of the Oglala Sioux Tribe and the Interdistrict Council and the Landowners Association, all three which represent anywhere from 80 to 85% of the total Indian population of the reservation, asked us to come in to help them provide a forum for their redress of grievances. They had previously been involved in an internal struggle with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the tribal government, of which they illegally were prevented from a redress of their grievances. So consequently, the court of last resort in Indian country has always been the American Indian movement. And therefore, we were asked to come in the first time ever to come in on a reservation. And we came here, met for 2 days with the traditional tribal chiefs and the holy men of this reservation. Met with them for 2 days. At 7:30 p.m. on February 27th, it was decided to come into Wounded Knee, and we were here within the hour.
And your plans were what?
Our plans at that time was to ask that the High Interior Department officials come here to negotiate with us, along with the senators. The senators came. The Interior Department officials refused to, and that was to create immediate change that Indian people could feel and see insofar as the land is concerned, the Bureau of Indian Affairs is concerned, and the tribal government is concerned.
You mentioned earlier that you met with the traditional tribal chiefs here, but you didn't mention Dick Wilson. He's not one of the traditional leaders.
No, he isn't. The traditional leaders are hereditary and appointed by the communities themselves. People like Iron Cloud, Red Cloud, Fool's Crow, Kill's Enemy. These are the traditional chiefs that have come down from the last century.
One of the things that you would like to see is the ouster of Dick Wilson, is that correct?
That is a mute question now.
So how long do you see Wounded Knee continuing as it is now? What is it going to take before there is something definite done for the Indian at Wounded Knee?
Wounded Knee will not be over until either they, 1, massacre us, 2, address our treaty rights by law, according to United States law.
What do you think is going to be necessary to do to get the Department of the Interior and the Bureau to recognize your aims and your goals?
We're no longer dealing with the Department of Interior. We're no longer dealing with any of the subordinate departments of the federal government. According to our treaty rights, we are to deal with the President of the United States and or his designated representative, which has power over Justice, Interior, or HEW, or anyone else. And this is whom we have asked that Hank Adams be appointed by the President, be this negotiator our special supervisor, as it's worded in our treaty rights.
You want the president, his office, to negotiate with you. Would you be satisfied with President Nixon putting his signature on a document, making promises to look into the grievances? Would you be satisfied with that?
Definitely not. President Nixon lied to us once before when we left Washington, D.C. in November. Now, each one of those conditions were abrogated, that agreements we reached with him in White House negotiations, and also the reply to our 20-point solution problem to the government's problem in Indian affairs was answered in the most ambiguous manner that I think history can record. No, Nixon's going to have to come across with more than promises. He has to come across with results.
Is it true that you've declared this area a separate nation from the United States government?
The Indian people have always had sovereignty. It's been a quasi-sovereignty as defined by the Supreme Court of the United States, that we are, in fact, dependent domestic nations. However, we feel that we can, based on our land holdings, we are independent, we can and will be independent nation. We're just going based on the 1868 treaty, which makes us an independent nation. Now, until that treaty is addressed to, we will remain here in Wounded Knee.
Now, if you're a separate nation, will you want any kind of federal aid?
Where were they? Oh, no, I don't know.
No, only in terms of what the diplomats arrange, foreign aid or whatever.
But mainly you want your land back. How much land?
The land question has to be resolved in extended treaty negotiations about our treaty rights. Now, western South Dakota from the east bank of the Missouri River, according to our treaty, is our land. That has to be settled.
So do you see other Wounded Knees if a settlement isn't reached here?
I see other Wounded Knees going to continue until the United States addresses itself to the treaty rights of Indian people all over the United States. This is one of 371 treaties ratified by the Congress of the United States, which make them the law of the land, equal to and on par with the Constitution of the United States of America.
What if the demands are not met? Then you're going to be here for a long time. This armed conflict or this confrontation is going to continue indefinitely.
I feel that the Justice Department in the United States of America, we have at this time emissaries visiting the Organization of American States, in fact making personal ambassadors, if you will, going to Mexico City and to Guatemala, Chile, Argentina, Cuba, and others countries within the Organization of American States. Also, we have diplomats at the United Nations that are trying to get our treaty heard in the United Nations.
Are you looking for foreign aid from these countries, or just to get your side of the story across?
Initially, we're looking for diplomatic recognition from these countries around the world.
Early in the occupation, you're quoted as saying that you're willing to die here at Wounded Knee. Is this still the case?
Definitely. As I stated, they either massacre us or recognize our treaty. And President Nixon, when he made that treaty with North Vietnam, stated via satellite TV to the world that the United States would live up to all its treaty commitments that it has already made. And we construed that to state that he would also live up to the Indian treaties. So consequently, you see, one thing you can't get the Indian to understand is how they can make a treaty with North Vietnam and pour in billions of dollars of reparation, and at the same time disregard the treaties made with Indian people and withdraw millions of dollars from the congressional allocations and appropriations.
Russell, what has been the situation with your group and with authorities here at Wounded Knee?
Situation here is they're still talking about how they can get us into prison without killing us. That's all the negotiations that have gone on so far. We've had, of course, promise after promise by the Justice Department that supplies would be let in, which hasn't happened. Those promises have been broken, which is par for the course. Also, that people would not be arrested, arbitrarily and indiscriminately, and yet that continues to go on. So consequently, we have broken off negotiations until such time as they can deal with our treaty rights.
What about the reports of exchanges of gunfire that we hear about here at the Siege of Wounded Knee?
That happens every night. The federal government, of course, claims we fire first, which that claim is asinine. It's beyond belief. Our sentries along our borders are given 10 rounds of ammunition apiece each night because we haven't that much ammunition. And besides that, it would be foolhardy, to say the least, for us to attempt to militarily engage the most powerful country militarily in the history of mankind.
They haven't allowed us to bring them down the federally controlled highway. We've asked for medicines and things, and they've let us bring in stuff like aspirin and Band-Aids, and said, okay, well, we let them have medical supplies. We asked for food for our people, and they give, they say, well, here, we'll give you 5 pounds of flour today and maybe 5 pounds of beans tomorrow, if you're lucky, if you're still there, and, spread that out among your people, man, and it just don't work out.
You don't have a weapon with you right now. Do you normally carry a weapon?
Yes, when I'm on duty.
Have you fired at the federal people before?
I can't answer that question. I have been fired upon by the federal people several times. I was next to the medic that got shot. And things like this, are common, it happens every night.
Do you feel there's much greater danger of injury, possibly death, to someone in these incidents as the siege continues?
Well, last night, for example, this .30 caliber shell right here ricocheted within the Church of God, where we keep a lot of the women and children, where they sleep at night. .30 caliber weapon. This is an M16 that was dug out of a wall of the other church, the little white church down here. And here's a .32 expended slug that was found near the church. So yes, I definitely believe there's going to be injury. We've had 3 woundings already. 1 medic and 2 Oglala Sioux have been wounded.
Do you think the government is definitely trying to provoke an incident of gunfire and bloodshed here in this area?
Oh yes, that's part of the game. Also, part of their game is to expend our ammunition. They fire in these .30 caliber slugs, anti-personnel weapons that are illegal according to the Geneva Convention. It's .30 caliber. It's supposed to be used for aircraft. Instead, they're using it as anti-personnel. These also, if we, happen to, in the exchange of gunfire, kill a federal officer, that would give them all the excuse they need to just come in and massacre us. So I know that there's a plan behind their fire.
So the Indians here aren't shooting first?
Like I said, it would be foolhardy. And it's even ludicrous to suggest that we would. We have a certain amount of intelligence, and when you see armored personnel carriers surrounding you, and men with M16 and all automatic weapons, and helicopters, that'd be a form of suicide. Now, we're willing to die. We're not afraid of death, but we don't want to be killed. We would rather have our treaty rights recognized.
Federal grand juries in Sioux Falls have returned some 54 indictments against the occupation forces here at Wounded Knee, and in late April or early April, more indictments may be coming down. Do you fear the federal recourse for your actions here?
According to our treaty rights, they haven't any business.
Yeah.
That's like indicting Arabs in Egypt because they're involved with Israel. You know, we're another country. They haven't any jurisdiction over us.
But you don't fear going to court. I believe you're quoted as saying in one of the magazines, in one of the weekly magazines, give us our day in court. Would you like that day in court?
Personally, I only speak for myself. If everyone else would be given amnesty, I guess is the word, I'd be more than willing to go to court. I believe that would be an excellent forum.
So to settle the matter now, you would be willing to go to court and explain your side of the story or take whatever federal action would be put against you?
Right, provided I had enough of the bond money, of that $500,000 or so they're going to slap on me.
How do you react to concern or criticism, I guess, by some unnamed people that actually AIM is more interested in AIM advancement than the welfare of the Indian themselves, or in individual AIM advancement?
AIM stands for the American Indian Movement. It does not state a specific tribe or a specific group of people. We represent a fact of Indian life. In every strata of Indian society, we have AIM membership. We represent a fact of Indian life. The only forum we have available to us for our grievances is the media. And we try to use that media. Yes, we are for the advancement of the American Indian movement insofar as ridding ourselves of corrupt tribal government, the corrupt and lethargic Bureau of Indian Affairs, and its cumbersome bureaucracy, and the fact that we were, and first and foremost, to get our treaties back in the forefront of negotiations with the United States of America. All 371 that are ratified by the Congress of the United States, and also the unratified treaties, which is the next step.
There is criticism from the press that you have prolonged the occupation here to gain more publicity.
We've prolonged the occupation here because of our treaty rights and our lives. And as far as publicity goes, yes, the American Indian needs media cooperation for a redress of our grievances. We do not have 20 million people that can effectively lobby in Washington, D.C. We do not have corporations or any kind of monetary power whatsoever or influence. Look what happened to the Alaska Natives, and they own the oil. They're getting less than 1% of what's going to come out of their oil. So you see, we do need media coverage for a redress of our grievances.
Just how
Go ahead, Bob.
Just how widespread do you think your support is among the American Indians across the nation?
Almost total, and it even reaches into almost every foreign country in the world, our support. We received over 30 telegrams yesterday via Rapid City. I know we have much more, but we only got 30 of them that are from 30 different foreign countries expressing their support.
Getting back to the media, do you feel the media coverage of Wounded Knee has been fair? Or how would you evaluate the coverage of Wounded Knee at this stage?
Initially, yes, I thought the media coverage was more than fair. However, when the primary issue of our existence as Indian people, as sovereign Indian people, which is based on our treaties, this is not getting out. And the fact that the government has suspended the Constitution of the United States all the way to the California-Nevada border, the Illinois border, the New York State border, where they're arresting people because they're just traveling to Wounded Knee, and they're trumped up charges. The whole suspension of our civil liberties as Indian people across the nation have been suspended.
Why the lack of understanding do you feel about the treaty question?
The United States government and its people have effectively isolated Indian people and filed away our treaties for over a century and more. Consequently, the United States government neither has any explanation if they massacre us based on our treaty rights, and they haven't any answers for us if they negotiate it over our treaty rights. Right now, I imagine that in Washington, D.C., there's a heck of a lot of bureaucrats and White House personnel researching Indian treaties. Now, until those treaty questions are resolved, you're going to have many more wounded knees around this country. And we don't want to see that, because that involves Indian lives. The taking away of Indian lives, the threat of imprisonment of Indian people. We don't want to see any more wounded knees. So consequently, we need our treaty rights answered to.
Why did Wounded Knee happen now? Why not 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Or why not 1976, when white America has the gall to attempt to celebrate their manifest destiny birthday celebration? Why did it happen now? That you would have to ask our spiritual leaders. It just happened.